Hello, I'm having a conversation this evening with Mr. Nelson Moses Lassiter. How are you today, Mr. Lassiter?
I'm doing very well. Very well. How are you?
Good, good. And I want to give you the razzle, the dazzle, the sparkling, glitter, glam, blitz intro. But I'm going to let you do that. So introduce yourself right now.
My name is Nelson Lassiter, and I live in New York, born in Philly, and I am the CEO of my own production company. I'm also a writer, producer, and I direct. So it's I run a very tight ship, and I jack of all trades, master of none, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That is good. So you are a writer and producer. Do you also do some acting or work in front of the camera?
When I was in high school, I did some acting, and I do some acting in this upcoming project that I'm working on. But more importantly, actually, I prefer being behind the camera. I like being the one to kind of, create that creativity and, see that come to life through other people. Film is a collective, so it's a community. So I like, seeing all of that happen versus being the center of attention with some other stars.
Okay. Yeah, and I was just about to ask you if you were shy. It's okay to be shy. We'll try to get you out of your shell a little bit and tell us some things. And sometime I'm that person that try to push the person out of the shell and maybe try to reveal some things on some of their projects. So
Okay.
That's fair warning. I am a very nosy person.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, very few people dive into my life, so this is refreshing, a change of pace.
So let's start off by having you tell us about yourself in terms of your professional journey thus far and your filmmaking experience.
It's very interesting. I actually have a degree, I have a BA in economics, and I actually started off as a financial analyst, which is completely different from filmmaking. But I did that because, it was kind of expected of me. My family was like, this is what you need to do to get a good job. I was actually the first male to graduate from college. My parents finished, so there was just all that pressure. But, after a year and a half doing that, I was just like, this is not me. I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. So I did something really risky, and I quit my job and actually moved abroad. And I moved to Spain, so I was living in Spain for a couple months, just to kind of like clear my mind. It's really interesting how I ended up in film, but it definitely started, and I took that chance to kind of like say, yeah, this is not the direction I want to go with my life. I want to find out what really works for me and what really makes me happy. So that was my professional journey until I became a filmmaker.
Okay. And I understand that you now reside in New York. Are you a native New Yorker? And I tried to have that New York accent. I hope you heard that.
I can't pull the New York accent off at all. I'm very much so a Philadelphian, born and raised. I don't get my cheesesteaks and Pacchiginos. I don't do any of those tourist traps. But I born and raised in Philadelphia, and I moved to New York in 2009. It was just one of those things. It was 2 hours away. It made sense.
Mm-hmm. And so you ended up in Spain. Give us just a little bit more about how that came about. Some more details surrounding that.
Say that. Sorry, repeat the question.
You ended up in Spain, you said earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just sort of prodding to get some more details.
Oh, yeah. Well, what's interesting about New York is that there are just, you always run into people from all walks of life and all over the world, and it really is a melting pot. So one day, my friend and I, we were at a bar, and she was like, oh, this guy's really handsome. I want to go talk to him. And he's like, all right, go ahead. And we found out it was the Spanish guy that was visiting New York. And the funny thing was, she was trying her best effort to get his attention, but wasn't into women. So it was really funny watching the track. So I came in and joined him and just kind of had a conversation. But yeah, well, I've never, my first time in New York and don't really know where to go. So I offered to be their tour guide. So after a few days, I showed me around New York, and they were like, "Oh, if you're ever in Spain, you should, we'll give you a tour." So, I guess it was November of 2011. I decided to go visit Spain. They gave me a really cool tour. I met a lot of really cool people, made some good contacts. And when I got to the point that I wanted to quit my job, and I knew I wanted to leave the country and just experience the world, Spain made sense because I made a lot of good friends there. And once you're in Europe, it's really easy to fly around to different cities. So it was just kind of like a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, let me just go to Spain, see where my life takes me. So it was, breaking out of my comfort zone and doing that. It was such an awesome experience.
And I guess the only thing I can say to that is, wow, you just got up and went with the wind, and it worked out.
There was a lot of deliberation. I had the conversations with myself. Is this the right decision? Am I doing it? How am I to make things work when I come back? I had the plan, but I just knew that the direction that I was going at the time, as an analyst and in finance, it just wasn't the future that I wanted to have for myself. And I knew that the longer you stay in that, the harder it is to get out. So it really got to that point where it's either now or never.
And just speaking a little bit, while we are in Europe, you are the founder of Denouement Films.
Correct.
And denouement, I do recall from writing and from literature and its meaning, and that French word,
Correct.
denouement. And I guess where I'm going with this is, does that mean that you are influenced by French filmmaking or European filmmakers, for that matter?
Well, the beauty of the beauty of that word, I think it's one of the most amazing literary terms, but it also just sounds really cool to say it. But denouement, I heard this when I was in 7th grade, and we were studying short stories, and it was just something that stuck with me for a really long time. And when it came to actually coming up with the name for the production company, I was just like, wow, this word, it was the first word that popped into my head. It means so many things. The climax, where all storylines converge. It's really the focal point. Kind of like, this is the essence of the film. It's this moment right now where everything matters. I felt that if there was any word that would be really powerful to describe a production company, I felt like denouement was perfect. Luckily, it wasn't already taken, so it was great. Now it's mine.
Right. And so you were heavily influenced by French filmmakers, or you were not? I just want to go back to that.
Yeah. A lot of my influences come from various parts in, throughout the entire world. I love I love Chinese films. I love French films. I love, one thing I do like about European films is that they're all about the action versus, vocalized. In American cinema, especially mainstream, they have a tendency of telling the audience what's happening, saying, I'm mad and angry with you right now. But in a lot of the European cinema, the pace is much slower, and they really want to invoke emotion, pain or anger. It would be more of a, an awkward conversation at the dinner table where all you really hear is like the tapping of silverware on the plates or something. And it's like, that moment of silence or that subtle eye movement, does more to invoke an emotion, in my opinion. than just saying to someone, I'm mad or I love you. I think something as subtle as a smile or a wink or, holding someone's hand, I feel like that's much more powerful, and I feel that I get a lot more of that in, foreign cinema, especially European cinema, than I do in American.
Okay. And name at least 3 people who have had the most influence over your artistic style. American or European, either one.
Well, my top 3 are definitely American, but there is one European that I want to say just because he's very influential and a lot of people know him, but it's John Lucas. I think he's fantastic. I think everything that he's done is just it's just one of those things where, like, there is, talent all over, and he's extremely influential. I would say the first person on my list on the American side would definitely be George Lucas, and that's primarily because of the first 2 minutes in the first Star Wars film. I remember watching this on VHS, and you see that one shot when the small ship comes on the screen. The next thing you know, the bigger ship comes on the screen. It's like, I didn't even know that you could do that with movies. I didn't even know that that was possible. And it's like, wow, this is instantly taken into a completely new world. And that was the first time I can definitely say that film or a film had, inspired me or left an impression on me. And I, will forever tip my hat to him for that scene. It was amazing. Another filmmaker that he's also very popular right now, Christopher Nolan. And not only is it because of his storytelling and how he tells stories, but it's really, I love his story, like his actual start. His very first feature film was Following, and he shot that on film. And it was a micro-budget film that he shot for like $6,000. But it just shows that he has an idea, he had a dream, and he also had the determination to make it happen. So whether he was shooting on weekends to just get these scenes done, or cutting it and editing it to himself, he was like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. This is what's going to happen. So I tip my hat off to that as well. It's a piece of inspiration for me that keeps me going. And lastly, I would have to say is Scorsese. He just has an amazing style of storytelling, but at the same time, he never ceases to amaze me with what he comes out with. And he deserves every bit of success that he has.
Okay. And let's just talk about some of your projects that They Do Films have, past and present projects. I am familiar with Alpha Males. You can tell me about that project and some of the other projects.
Yeah. Well, Alpha Males is very interesting because it was one of the first screenplays that I wrote. And, I got a good piece of advice. A friend of mine said, if you're going to write something, you should write about what you know. And I felt that it would be interesting to, write a story about, an inner city kid, going into a new, environment, making a fish out of water. But it was also kind of like showing that in that entire experience, it's not about where you come from or what you look like that defines who you are. It is, the decisions you choose to make with your life. And I decided to put that in the backdrop of, an inner city kid going to private school. And, on the surface, it just looked like, a story about race and, the racial divide and social divide in the country. But in reality, it's more so about, not having these constructs define who you are as a human being, as an individual, and leaving it to yourself to define who you are. And that was the main purpose of it. The reason why it was called Alpha Male is just because, in the animal kingdom, there's always the alpha male and an omega wolf. And that concept truly exists in society. And what I wanted to play with was that, what is it that, that defines you as an alpha male? Is it where you were born? Is it the family you were born into? Is it because of the money that you have? Because you're athletic? And it's like, and if you are considered to be the omega wolf, do you have the opportunity or the ability to become an alpha male? Kind of playing around with all of that. So that was the focus of it. And I really enjoyed writing, actually.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, you can continue. I'll just go off your lead.
Sure. I know that you have 2 other projects too, and I was excited to learn that you have a psycho thriller, for lack of a better word. Can you tell me about that project?
Well, yeah. So, so right now, one of the things that we're promoting is a web series that we just shot over the weekend, and I'm really excited about that. I'll get back to that in a little bit, but yeah, in March, I'm actually following in the footsteps of Christopher Nolan and shooting my very first micro-budget feature film, and it's great because it's self-financed, so it took a lot to get to this point, but I'm really excited to put my heart and soul on the line for something I really care about. But yeah, this is a story that really plays with the idea of social media, but also our attachment to our cell phones and how we store so much of our private lives and so much of ourselves on it. And I wanted to play around with the idea that what if someone had access to all of that information on there? They knew every intimate detail about you, and that person was obsessed with you. It's like, playing around with that idea. How would you react to that? And then what would happen if you found out that the person works where you work? And it's just kind of like, I wanted to play with, how that would affect your psyche, where it's like there are just so many sensitive things where you just can't necessarily go to because of, and what information would come out. I also wanted to create a situation where the lead character was a male, but also, kind of an environment where what type of situation could a male character be in where he felt vulnerable. Usually in Joey, it's always a female leader that can play the damsel in distress and they scream and they run, but, how would a man react in a situation when so much of his life could be exposed and that information could impact the lives of so many other people around?
Okay. And so, of course, you have tantalized and teased me with web series, No More Homo. Let's talk about that. No homo.
Yeah, correct. So it's really fun. It's actually, it came out of a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were just chatting. He was just like, he said, well, gay guys have it very easy because girls drop their guard when they're around, so they can say whatever they want and get away with it. And, eventually from that conversation, I was like, it would be cool if there was a story about, someone pretending to be gay in order to sleep with girls. Like, would that work? And I kind of wanted to play around with that idea of making it really funny, since that the lead character is just such a terrible person. That, like, when he tries this, it's like the audience wants to see him fail. So the idea of calling it no homo is that because of the fact that the character is straight, he's not gay, it's like, he's not a homo. But the other piece to it as well is that, that word used by a lot of straight people when they're just saying, well, yeah, I like you, but I'm not gay, And I felt like it was the proper, I think it was a perfect title, actually, because when you actually see the episode, it's one of those things where you kind of realize that, these things that the main character is doing, he comes off very flamboyant and he thinks that this is how gay people are, but he kind of realizes that, yeah, that's not what it means to be gay. Like being very flamboyant and, following a lot of the stereotypes. Like, throughout the series, you kind of learn that that's not what defines, someone as a gay person, and that the only thing that defines them as a gay person is the fact that they like men. So in the process, it's kind of like breaking down these, different stereotypes and terms that exist, and it's kind of like, yeah, there's that's all it is. It's like you can like someone or love someone. You can be straight, you can be gay. Two guys can, have great affection for each other, but not be gay. It's one of those type of things. And I felt like the title would not only get people's attention, but when they watch it, they'll understand why I gave it that title. And I wanted to create something that was funny, but at the same time not too preachy.
Okay. And how many episodes have you made of No Homo so far? Or how many episodes will there be with that series?
So we shot 2 episodes so far, and our ultimate goal is to, for right now, we want to put them on YouTube. I think that's something that's really funny, and it should be, available for pretty much everyone to see. The overall goal I'm thinking, we're looking into about 9 or 10 for the first season. Not too long of a run. But I feel that with storytelling, there's a certain story you want to tell, there's a certain arc, and you should never try to elongate or stretch out that arc for the sake of keeping something going. So I feel that I kind of mapped out a story that I want to tell that can be told about 9 to 10 episodes, and then after that, who knows what comes next.
So it seems like you have a couple of different projects. You mentioned Alpha Males. You mentioned No Homo, as well as the psycho thriller movie. What is the title of that thriller once again?
Oh yeah, so the title for that is it's called You're So Pretty. And
thank you.
It's such a creepy title when you think about the idea that someone kind of like knows so much about you. There's a scene in the film where the main character is sitting at his desk and he just got like a new haircut and he's wearing a nice fitted suit, and all of a sudden the person that has gained access to his phone, is hacked into his phone, text You're so pretty, because it's kind of creepy. Next thing you know, he goes, especially in your new haircut, your fitted suit. Like, wow, this person's in here. This person knows exactly who I am, and they have access to the most sensitive information about my life. So I really wanted to create a story that really plays with that, but also a title that comes off creepy enough to really set the mood.
And is this a project where you will play unicorn? I use the term unicorn to describe the creative types who are in front of as well as behind the camera.
Well, I will not be in front of the camera.
Will you ever be in front of the camera? Are you ever going to turn the camera back on yourself and maybe?
I'm in a few episodes of the web series. So you'll see some of me in that. As far as future projects, I make a cameo here and there, but I definitely believe that, at least for the things that I'm doing, there's a certain style, there's a certain brand, there's a certain image that I want to create with it, and I'd rather have my name associated with that brand than, my face plastered all over the walls. I think that, if you go out there and you see, a billboard for a film and you see that it's a denouement production, I want people to say, yeah, I know what I'm going to get when I see that. versus, them seeing my face in a film. They're like, well, yeah, he's a good actor. I wonder how the other ones are, kind of like that. I feel like
Right.
me going behind the scenes, I can make sure that the total package is, the reflection of the best that I have versus, me just playing one part in a bigger piece.
I see. Okay. What are some of the challenges you have faced as a filmmaker to bring some of your projects to the marketplace, and what have you done to overcome those challenges?
Well, I would say one of the biggest challenges is, I think for any filmmaker, they'll definitely say is financing. The market doesn't really yield itself too friendly to financing indie projects. I remember when I had first moved back to New York, and after working for the production company in Europe, I realized I was like, wow, well, where do I start now? And what I kind of realized is that there's so many filmmakers that make so many projects, but so many of these never get seen. And the reason why is a lot of these indie filmmakers look at film solely as an art form, but don't realize that, it's also a business. You have to treat your film like a business. On paper, each film is a registered LLC, and you have to treat it as such. You have to have a strategy. You can't just say, I'm going to make this film and send it to festival. Okay, what if that doesn't work out? You've invested all this money into something and it doesn't go anywhere. So one of the things that I do to kind of set myself apart from that is, I literally build strategies and contingencies for things. I'm like, all right, let's see, if this, if tactic 1 doesn't work, what's tactic 2? Like if tactic 1 is, send it to, a film festival and it gets distributed, which is like winning a lottery for a lot of filmmakers. So, that doesn't work. What is your next strategy? Oh, well, I can do, digital downloads. Okay, that's fine, but how are you going to promote it? How are you going to build an audience? How are you going to use your film to separate it from all the other stuff? What can you do? What is your strategy? What if that doesn't work? What is your alternate goal? Just to make something that looks good, or do you want to actually get theatrical distribution, or do you want to do TV? And when you really make that decision to figure out what it is you actually want to do with it, then it will allow you to build a course for it. The other piece is, okay, if you want to build a film that's going to get theatrical distribution and played all over the world, don't make a super experimental film that has a plot that no one's going to understand or appreciate, because at the end of the day, if you're going for the theatrical route in multiple theaters, you have to realize that you're not just making art, you have to make art that's going to appeal to the masses. Because no one's going to invest money in something that they don't think will make money. So it really is about understanding that it's a business and treating it as such. It's kind of like a tough compromise you have to make.
I see. Now, with the first film, Alpha Males.
Right.
When is Alpha Males going to come to the marketplace? Will it go to the film festivals first, or what? When and where will that film actually be shown?
Right. So the director, actually, his name is Pascal Latil. He's a French director, so back to the French. He's actually working on a big project in Brazil right now, but we plan on actually finishing this film sometime later this year, and his ultimate goal for that is Sundance, and I actually agree with him, so I think that the story that we have definitely in line with that, but if it doesn't get released in Sundance, there's a couple other festivals that we are strategizing with. We recently received fiscal sponsorship from the Brooklyn Arts Council, which actually helped us out in raising money for the film because all the donations are tax deductible, because the film is treated as a 501c3, which is great. And I'm really excited to see where that goes, and because so much of the story is personal. A lot of it is taken from my personal experiences, and I think it's curious to see how, the events that influence my life, how other people are going to react to them, or other people can relate to them, or, what people would say about them. So that's really piqued my interest. It was interesting. I was very stressed out and nervous about exposing so much of myself in a film. But I feel that in doing so, I've created a really good story that I'm quite sure someone out there, somewhere in the world, can relate to.
So then I do recall seeing the trailers for it. So you're saying that the film is not actually finished?
It is not actually finished. Yeah, so like I said, filmmaking is an expensive art. And
Okay.
yeah, so the film should be, a lot of this is pending on when Pascal actually gets back, because we've been shooting this in pieces. But it should be finished by the end of the springtime. And
Okay.
yeah.
So that means I'll reach out to you again and figure out what's going on with Alpha Males and where it is going to be in theaters or in festivals and so on and so forth.
Exactly. Well,
Okay.
Yeah. So once principal photography wraps up in by the end of spring, we'll still probably have a period of a month where we're doing some of the color correction and a lot of the post-production. So for me, I believe that first impressions are the most important impressions. And if you want to do it the first time, you got to do it right. So
I see.
I'm very, very meticulous, and I want to make sure that when I put this product out there, that it not only looks good, sounds good, but every aspect of it is good.
I see. And so what's next for you professionally?
Well, let's see. We get these projects done, get these 2 films done, finish the first season of the No Homo series. But also, last year, I actually ran a independent short film festival. And I think I'm going to pick that up again this year, because it was a really great way to connect with a lot of other filmmakers. And I actually had a film forum as well, where all of these indie filmmakers kind of talked about the ups and downs and the struggles they had in producing their shorts. And it was a really great collective of just filmmakers coming together, appreciating the art of filmmaking, but also just, it was beautiful to see these people work, like when they saw their films on the big screen. It's just, for a filmmaker to have an audience to your stuff, it's a feeling that's just one of a kind. And I liked the fact that I was able to not only partake in that feeling, share that feeling, but help give that feeling to a lot of the filmmakers, because as a filmmaker myself, I know exactly what it feels like. So I'm quite sure I'm going to pick that up again this November as well.
Okay. And what film festival was that once again?
So, yeah, that was the New York Cinema Film Festival, and its acronym is NYDS, N-Y-D-S. It was actually featured in Next Magazine as well as Indie NYC, so it was kind of cool to get some digital coverage on that. But I'm excited. Every year so far has been better than the previous, and very much a workhorse. So I'm just, I really have no idea what the future holds, but I know that whatever happens, it's not going to stop me from creating and, making art.
Right. Have you reached out to other filmmakers across the country and some of these on social media? For example, I met you, of course, through my film group, and it's an honor to actually have a conversation with you. But have you reached out to others and other filmmaking groups around the country?
Well, that's interesting. The more that I meet people, the more I realize how small and connected it actually really is. There's one filmmaker, his name is Michael Morgenstern, who's based out in San Francisco. And I kind of discovered recently that some of the crew that I've worked with have also worked on a couple of his productions. And he had this one film called Lily and the Grinder, and it's actually picked up, it's a part of the finalist in HBO's Project Greenlight series. And this is really interesting because when I met him in New York, we were just at a screening, and he was probably the most low-key, chill person. You would never even know that he's doing all of these amazing things. And I feel like that's kind of the vibe that I get from a lot of filmmakers, that, the ones that are always like out there, like just trying to kind of like sell themselves and everything. I get that, branding. But then, you meet a lot of other ones that are doing the amazing things that just literally, as a person, they go right under the radar, but their work speaks for themselves. And that kind of pulls back to how I feel about the difference between being in front of the camera and behind the camera. I want my work to represent me. I want them to say, yeah, that is definitely stuff that's definitely again in my production. Definitely something that movies do. That's the vibe where, I saw Interstellar, and I was like, Christopher Nolan, once again, I am not, and I repeat, I am not upset. You did an amazing job. I'm happy I spent this much money on my ticket. And that's the reaction that I want. I want people to say, yep, that was amazing. That was amazing stuff. And that's just the overall goal here.
And what else would you like to tell us about you or your work, or where we can find your work, Denouement Films, No More Homo, Alpha Males, and so forth?
Well, yeah, if there's any big takeaway that I want people to know about me, but, my ultimate goal is to create films that, leave an impression on people. Because, whether it's a social impression or a creative impression, I just want to create something that will have people talk about it. And that's mainly because the films that I liked and remember the most were the ones that left an impression on me, whether it was Star Wars, whether it was, Stellar, whether it was, Inception, Dark Knight, or Wolf of Wall Street, or anything. The films that leave an impression are the ones that get remembered. And I definitely want to be that person that does that. And, you can definitely see a lot of my stuff. Denouement Films, that's our Twitter. Denouement Films is also our Instagram. And we also have Facebook, Denouement Films. So, try to keep things very, very similar across the board for social media.
Okay. And I do want to thank you, Mr. Lassiter, or I should say Nelson Moses Lassiter. Say your entire name. I won't just call you Mr. For just making yourself available this evening and speaking with us and our audience, and just getting people excited about your work and getting people to just tune into your web series.
I thank you for taking the time to chat with me. That you find what I do interesting.
Oh, see, now you're laughing when you say that, and I'm going to say your work is interesting, and I will keep in touch with you and watch you over the years, just as you get that work out there into the audience and marketplace.
I greatly appreciate that. I really do.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Goodbye.